This is every Minecraft mob fact in one video, starting with, anyone who's ever messed around with the technical side of Minecraft is well and familiar with the concept of a mob switch. That is, you get a bunch of withers in a cage, make sure they don't despawn, and no new hostile mobs are going to be giving you trouble. It's a great system, but it's definitely costly. So a simpler and safer option to do is instead having a zombie villager mob switch. You see, if you trade with a villager and then zombify it, this will make them both unable to despawn and also count towards the mob cap. This is actually a great way to put zombie villagers to use, and in turn, actually keep all other villages safe. In Bedrock Edition, the Allays can blink, but this one says the Java Edition doesn't. Pretty awkward staring contest, and it'll be extremely awkward because they do not blink in Java. They also said the Allays can blink in Bedrock, but after hours of studying it, it's just not so. Though there are resource packs over there that allow this to happen, but otherwise it's just the players that's blinking. So I guess that means myth double busted.
Why is this villager riding a chicken? Well, if the baby zombie on a chicken jockey happens to be a zombie villager, then when you cure it, it'll become a villager again, but won't leave the chickens back. Meaning if you cure this Diamond Armor zombie villager chicken jockey, you'll have the true rarest mob in Minecraft.
While riding a camel, it'll make you immune to any kind of melee damage. If I go into survival and I have this husk down here, I am safe to this melee damage. But that's only true given where the husk relative is. So as soon as it steps up, it is able to hit me. It just needs a footstool before it's able to do anything. But as long as you're staying to the flat desert down here, you are pretty safe on the camel. Oh, but an Enderman is tall enough to kill you on top of the camel. So partially confirmed, but not totally. Back in the day, it was possible to breed mushrooms and cows together, but ever since Snapshot 12W7A, this has been changed so that they only breed amongst themselves, which seems a little unfair, but since you can't shear a mushroom to change it back to a cow, I guess there's still a workaround if you need it. By throwing down seeds for a villager, regardless of the type, they're gonna walk towards and pick it up. And this blew my mind when I first heard it. I thought it would have only worked with farmer villagers, but sure enough, there is a way to get them to follow the breadcrumb trail.
Did you know that there's an Axolotl even rarer than the blue variant? See, back in the development of Snapshot 21W17A, there was the idea to add an Axolotl with an open mouth texture like this, but it was never properly implemented, and by the following snapshot, it was removed. So if you see an Axolotl with an open mouth, you've either got a glitch, or maybe it's just hungry.
Observer, what do you think of our giant pixel art? So, taking inspiration from what Mudcripe did on Twitter, we've got, check out how awesome this is. Since it can use all the different harness colors and all the 16 different wool colors, we can actually build something pretty impressive. I mean, there is a whole lot of tentacles coming out of it, but seeing that we can use the invisibility potions too, then you can make this look a whole lot better. What a marvelous tree. Although goats in Minecraft can tend to break off their horns when they run into a wall, that's not actually based on anything in real life, because the truth is that goats' horns are actually a part of the animal's skull. So if they were to break off, the goat would have bigger problems. And really, this behavior in Minecraft much more closely resembles a deer with its antlers. Here's how to turn your boat into a turret, because as you'll soon notice, guardians can still shoot lasers out of the backseat of a boat. So if you manage to get one of these shotgun in your vehicle, it'll be a literal shotgun that you can point towards your friends. And the best part, it'll only target the other players who aren't in the boat, and it'll completely ignore you in the front seat, which is a blessing, but maybe make sure to drink an invisibility potion so that it doesn't attack you when you dismount the boat. The reason that wandering traders were added to Minecraft was because of inspiration from other various RPGs. And one of the game's designers even confirms this in the article, Meet the Wandering Trader, which would be why you could find these in incredibly dangerous places, since they're meant to help offer you some kind of healing item like they do in the RPGs. Although it's hard to say that their items are nearly as desirable as the ones found in the other games.
You can never outrun this slime, and the reason is that a slime's size determines its movement speed. So a size 8 slime will always outpace a player if you're not using any potion effects.
So this one says that if we summon in an Enderman, get it angry, and then apply a carved pumpkin, it won't stay angry at me. Which unfortunately for me, I'm not only dying, but I'm dying in the stupidest way possible. Granted, I can't anger it when I'm wearing it, but if I go and apply this here, the job's already been done. So attach your carved pumpkin as a preventative measure and not as something after the fact. So myth confirmed. Baby chickens are really small, but they aren't coded like they are. See, even though these mobs are less than a half a block in size, they still will walk through half-block tall spaces, meaning you don't have to worry about any of these mobs escaping through this slab, even if it doesn't make much sense.
This is an Elder Guardian, and this is the Elder Guardian Ghost. Exclusive just to Bedrock Edition, this secret mob can only be spawned in using the summon command. But what does it do? Well, clearly not much. It doesn't even have a texture, and all that you're able to see is its shadow. Eerie.
This myth says that a piglin will dance if it kills any mob besides a hoglin. So we've got our piglin, we're gonna get it aggro towards this chicken. Well, no dance, no fanfare, but it is a rare chance. Let's summon in a few more chickens. but sure enough, it's only coded so that they do this after a successful hoglin hunt. So, myth busted. This isn't a villager, but I wouldn't blame you if you thought so. But rather, this mob's called the NPC, and it only exists within the Education Edition. And while these do share a lot of visual similarities to the villager, they're actually a mob that exists only for map makers to make special qualifications, like having text pop-ups or even buttons to press that summon different commands. It's pretty cool, but if you don't add those, they have no AI and basically useless. This myth says that if we have an untamed wolf and a tamed wolf, we can't breed the two together. So I'll tame one of these up. There's our domesticated wolf, but if I take my pork chop and breed them up, sure enough, you can't breed an untamed wolf with a tamed wolf, even though both are now in love mode. There you go, myth confirmed. Anyone who's ever messed around with a mob farm knows this problem. Because after all, even though it is great to have the mobs up on the spawning platform, we do eventually want to get them down to, well, their inevitable demise. And in a lot of cases, water buckets work great for that. Except if you're in the Nether. You see, in that dimension, we gotta get a bit more creative. And luckily, ghast sweepers are just the thing for that. As it turns out, the large hitbox of a ghast is perfect to just sweep other mobs off the spawning platform. So if you're willing to get the hands, arms, feet, and legs of this big thing inside the vehicle at all times, this is definitely the way you can make your mob farms in the Nether.
Why does the axolotl eat this fish, but not this one? Well, the answer is actually based on real life. According to Mojang's dev diaries, this is because real axolotls will only eat fish that are alive. So that's why they'll only follow you into battle if you have the bucket. They just want their sushi as raw as it comes.
Why do piglin brutes have 50 HP compared to the regular piglin's 16? Well, according to lead artist Jasper, that's because their golden arm guard serves as protection, which is the first ever case of golden armor actually being effective. Chorus fruit is a real pain to go and farm. Now, let's say that we've got our bow. That's usually a pretty good way to go and get your stuff from it. But with the help of the happy ghast, I can just go right up to these chorus fruit, break the flowers, and pick them up easy peasy. I don't even have to stop flying. But even if I did, we know that the items are gonna fall on top and stay completely fine. Consider that these are a plant that you have to go and farm actually keeping them tall. That would be the benefit for this. Obviously, other plants, you just go and break the bottom stalk. It's no worries. But for something like this, that's pretty good. You can even go and use it to go trim the top branches of trees if you want to. If you're able to get up close and personal to a camel's nose, you'll notice that when you look at it dead on, it actually seems to match the texture of a wither skull, which with Minecraft's resolution, it's tough to tell if this was intentional or just about the only way that you could make a camel's nose look right. But intentional or not, it's still a fun Easter egg.
Drowned in Bedrock Edition looks significantly different to those in Java. But why is that? You'll notice the drowned mob in Bedrock has a 3D outer layer to its model, which gives it a bigger head and arms than it has in Java. Additionally, this causes its armor to render weirdly, especially with any helmets like so.
This one states that dolphins, even though they are aquatic mobs, require a mix of both air and water to survive. If I were to give this a ceiling, and then we tick sprint, even though it's fully given all of the water that it can need, eventually the dolphin will die from not having enough air. Sure enough. But we do that same test and we remove the lid, the dolphin will be fine. Myth confirmed. You know how a chicken can keep running with its head cut off? Well, the same does happen in Minecraft. Kind of. See, if you were to kill a chicken where it falls off a cliff, its corpse will fall slower than any other. And additionally, it'll still flap its wings after dying. When you give a mob the no AI tag, it doesn't move or follow the player. And that's true for all of them, except the Guardian. Yeah, apparently, since the Guardian's eye is coded as the head on the model, it'll still follow the player, even when it's supposed to have no AI. It's possible to get a pillager's crossbow to break after a certain amount of uses, but can the same be said about a skeleton? Well, by the looks of it, my shield's gonna break first. And if we were to go and check in, the skeleton's bow that it's given is given at damage 383, so it should have broken by this point. So if we were to give ourselves that same bow that it's using, it only could do one shot before it's broken. I take my one arrow, point it towards this guy, immediately breaks. The skeleton's not the same. Myth busted. Did you know there could have been a fourth frog variant? Because looking at concept art for the frog before it was added in, there did exist a special blue frog that could have been added as well, which if you ask me is a huge missed opportunity for not adding this in. At the very least, it could have given us another color of frog light, which it's always nice to have another building block. But really, even if this frog didn't get added in, at least all the ones that we have look so much better than the original frog texture. Ugh, that one's hideous.
What's the difference between a hoglin in 2020 and one today? Well, back in the snapshots for the Nether update, the hoglins had a glitch in their code in such a way that their legs and ears would flail about when moved or attacked.
What would you think is the strongest mob in Minecraft? Well, it might seem like the Warden, considering that it only takes 3 hits to kill you in full netherite enchanted armor. The crown for this would actually go to a charged creeper. Considering that on hard difficulties, this can do 127 damage. And for that much, you probably want to have a good set of blast protection armor, or at least a totem of undying as a backup call. Before horses were added to Minecraft, there were horses. Notice the quotation marks. Because these special mobs were only in the Java Edition snapshots for the April Fool's update, and they were really just retextured cows and pigs, which did make for a good joke, but shortly after, Mojang worked with Dr. Jark to add in proper horses into the game, and thankfully they didn't look like this. As of the snapshots for 1.19, we can now have 3 players riding in a boat, since if you get the new camel mob inside of one of these boats, then you can have one of your friends steer, and then you and another friend holding onto the back. And at that point, it technically seats 4, because the camel gets to come along as well. And then if you get some parrots on your shoulders, then I guess even more friends could come along for the journey. If you watch closely, this squid's arms will start to move slower and slower. And why this happens is because, in Bedrock only, a squid's arms show how much oxygen it has left. So when 15 seconds pass and it's out of air in the tank, its arms will stop and it'll suffocate, which seems like a lot of effort to code for such a pointless mob. Ah, the Happy Ghast Sanctuary. So going over to the ice spikes doesn't seem fitting for our regular ghast, but look at how pleasant this is. This is a winter wonderland, observer. So they love the rain and the snow, so building one of these over here for them is pretty perfect. If I were to just get a shovel, I'd get all the snowballs to feed up our happy fellas. Here we go. Come on down here. Whoa, whoa, not like that. And then you can speed grow them back up. And because they'll all stay in this area, 64 block radius if they're unharnessed, they blend in pretty well. And they regen extra fast inside of the snow. If you've played on enough Minecraft servers, then you're definitely aware that some people can be griefers. So if you want to give those annoying players more of a run for their money, you can actually trap an Elder Guardian and boom, you got your own form of anti-grief. Look, it's not perfect. If they have a milk bucket, they're going to be able to get past it. But if they're not prepared, they're going to have a hard time busting into your base. And hopefully that frustration that they feel will be enough to get them off of your lawn anyway. Especially if you trap the thing in obsidian so they're not able to break through. This makes for a pretty solid way to both annoy and hopefully ward off any greedy players. Here we've got our taxi service, or an Uber if you want to use that instead. But what we could do is we could charge your friends a toll service for using our happy ghast to get around.
Have you ever seen a fox with a beard? Well, don't say I didn't warn you. But if you were to get your fox to hold a wither skull in its mouth, then you'll notice that it looks like the fox has a beard. Or if that's not for you, then get it to hold a skulk sensor and that'll look like a goatee.
In life, you got a few essential pairings: the sun and the moon, peanut butter and jelly, and if you ask Bugs Bunny, rabbits and carrots. The way that rabbits work in Minecraft is that they'll try to come near you when you're holding a carrot, which means that with a system like this, you can actually build a rabbit carrot detector for secret entrances. It makes for an extremely weird concept, but if you're willing to carry around a couple extra carrots, those might come in handy if you forget your keys inside the base once again. I guess the only ones who don't benefit here are actually the rabbits, because after all that hard work, they're still not going to be able to get the carrot.
It's impossible to turn a squid upside down with a Dinnerbone name tag. Now don't be mistaken, you can still name a squid Dinnerbone or Grum, but you won't see any visual difference. Even Mojang doesn't know which way's the right way up for this mob. It's just that silly.
This myth says that wither skeletons are immune to wither roses. Sure enough. And if we were to get a regular skeleton down, we'll see just that. A regular skeleton takes the effect, but the wither skeleton, not only is it immune to wither roses, it's just immune to the wither effect in general. Myth confirmed. Although villagers might not always give you the best deal, it seems like they're always more than willing to give you that deal. Since, as it turns out, we can see from this post that villagers have no range for trading. And a good way to test this is by using 2 different ender pearls while standing up at build height. Throw one to the floor and then one up into the sky, and that way when you land and start trading with the villager, you'll then be teleported up to the top, and you'll see that we didn't even interrupt our trading. And given that other workstation UIs usually have a range to them, like chests or crafting tables, it's weird that this is the case, but it also lets us build this cool design that we have over in the end gateway, so I'm not complaining. The care package supply drop. What we could always do is just go be like Santa Claus and drop things down your friend's chimneys. Put everything that you want inside of the oak boat with the chest, and then when I leash that up to our ghast, we got our ghast with our supplies. I just go float on in and drop the toys, and then off I go. From afar, this might look confusing, but up close, you'll notice that this mess of white lines is actually an iron golem. See, when an iron golem cracks as its health goes down, those cracks show up when it's got the glowing effect, giving you even more of a reminder to toss in an iron ingot to heal it up. If your village ever were to get stormed by a couple zombies at night, install this and they'll be safe until the morning. Since just an observer or pressure plate coming out of our bed, we make it so that when we wake up, a bell will ring, and then I'll warn the other villagers to stay inside while the zombies are burning out there, which is a lot better than the alternative alternative of having your villagers open up the door only to get killed by a zombie on its last legs. Besides, there's already a bell in the village. This is at least a better use for it.
You can kill this whole batch of zombified piglins without any of them getting angry. You just need to be precise. Since if you were to kill this mob in one hit, then it doesn't have the chance to update the universal aggression tag on the other monsters. That means with a strong enough weapon and a critical hit, you don't have to worry about upsetting the pack when you pick off a few.
So here we've got the Happy Ghast carousel. So the way that we do this is that we can set up the Happy Ghast in a circular minecart rotation like so, and then by attaching saddled pigs underneath them, we go and ride these, flip the lever, and we've got ourselves our carousel ride. That is awesome. I love how fluid it looks with the leads too. It follows the arc really nicely there.
Skeletons didn't always use bows. In fact, when they were first added, these skeletons would hold out their arms and attack the player just like a zombie.
Having villagers in your trading hall is a great idea, but keeping those villagers in your trading hall is easier said than done. So to make sure they're stuck in place for their whole shift, what you could always do is tuck a few of these honey blocks underneath their feet. Since the way these work, they prevent both us and the villagers from jumping off of them. So if we make it impossible for them to walk off of the honey block, they'll never jump out of place, meaning that we don't need to keep them in a disgustingly low ceiling just to stop them from leaving, which looks a lot better and it keeps your trading hall from turning into a peanut gallery. If you're going to be settling down in Minecraft, then mob proofing is an essential part of your base. And while placing down a couple hundred torches is great for getting rid of things like skeletons, creepers, and zombies, as anyone knows, the light level does not matter when it comes to phantoms. Even getting something like a mob switch doesn't turn these off, so how do you get rid of them? Well, if you're looking to enlist a feline force, then you can actually use cats to keep away certain mobs. Just like that, any phantoms or stray creepers that try to wander near your base are going to be immediately deterred. And plus, it makes for a lot cuter of a defense than all the other options I've seen. Under certain circumstances, an iron golem will attack a villager. Now, clearly the villagers are a peaceful mob, but if they use their fireworks after a raid, that celebration might just damage a nearby golem. And if it does, the iron golem will get aggressive and even kill the villager that it's supposed to protect. If we push this cat off a cliff, nothing happens. And thankfully so, otherwise it'd be a murderer. But the idea behind this is that cats tend to land on their feet, and that'd be why cats in Minecraft not only don't take fall damage, but even if they were to fall into a dripstone spike, they're still not gonna get hurt, which is a pretty sweet deal. It's hard to say I'm not jealous.
In the experimental snapshots for 1.20, typing in the command to summon a bat would get you this. The bat would be upside down even while floating in the air. And surprisingly, this odd behavior causes the mob to glitch out quite a bit, making bats even more useless than they already were.
The Ghast stable, or you could make a proper aircraft hangar if you wanted to. I like going a little more rustic for these guys, but instead of having something that's purely minimalistic to store them in, you could just make a big enclosure for them to hang out, rest up, and then get ready for the next derby. Back in the beta, Minecraft's Enderman used to look like this. They had green eyes instead of purple ones, and they emitted a kind of black smoke. Oh, and they also had the same sound effects that the zombie did, which is confusing to hear nowadays. But luckily, they weren't very strong back then, so it wasn't that big of a threat if you heard either one. Zombie piglins used to look like this. Back when they were first announced, they'd exposed red flesh on their texture, and they didn't hold any kind of weapon, which made them look a lot more like zombies than we're used to. But that version of the pigman never made it into the game, and they were changed to a green color before its release. Here we've got the Ghast trash can. So the way that this works isn't anything to say about our Ghast itself, but if we go and walk on top of the Ghast, it has collision for only the duration that someone's standing on top of it. So I go and throw out all of my items like so, and then as soon as I step off, they all fall into the lava. So if I step off, this armor stand's gonna fall through. Look at that. See ya.
Silverfish used to have as much health as the player, with 20 hit points to their name. And thankfully, after the beta 1.9 pre-release, this was fixed so they now only have 8 HP instead. If you were to trap a drowned mob with a trident, then by following user Agent X24's design, we can have that trident hit a piece of TNT, ignite it, and then simultaneously convert multiple villagers all at once. And the reason is because Minecraft counts assists the same way that it does kills in the code. So if you're playing on hard mode, that means 100% certainty that all the villagers that die from the TNT are going to become zombies, which is a lot faster than having to make this whole railroad setup this way. So what we're seeing here is a myth that the fossils that we find inside of the Nether are actually the remains of sniffers, which I gotta say, for this to be true, they would have to be a whole lot bigger as sniffers. And considering the biggest we've ever seen a sniffer get is about this size, I wouldn't say that it has any relation. I think especially because there's dried ghast that we're seeing next to them, there's much more likelihood that it has something to do with the ghasts as opposed to our sniffer friends.
Myth busted. This is the most deadly pufferfish in Minecraft, and the reason for that is because if you change the NBT tag for a pufferfish's puff state data value, you can change its damage and poison time. So if we use this data command like so, we can make one that's either completely harmless or a destroyer of worlds.
This is what the spider looked like back in Java Edition Classic. It had a brown texture with black beads for eyes, which is quite the difference from how it looks today. Plus, it gave them some natural camouflage for dirt blocks, so that would have made these even creepier to deal with.
If you look at an endermite mob, it doesn't seem like it has much use. I mean, it's meant to be an annoyance, except the only ones that hate endermites more than us is, of course, endermen. And for that, we can put these endermites to good use. As soon as they were added into the game, using a stationary endermite to aggro all of the endermen down into a bait and switch has worked really well for these kinds of farms. Just like that, the burning hatred leads them down into a shallow grave. In the past, we had to worry about things like redstone and pistons to get the job done, but here, just put one of these little workers to go, and your machine will be producing and then some. This is an iron golem, and this is the love golem. If you put together 4 iron blocks and a carved pumpkin on top, you'll of course get the love golem. Exclusively found in the Love and Hugs update, this special mob is meant to be a manifestation of the villagers' love, and that's probably the reason why it's passive toward any players or even hostile mobs. Which, yeah, does mean that it doesn't do much, but in fairness, we can't attack mobs in this joke update either, so at least it's not alone.
This is how we see the end, and this is how an Enderman sees the end. If you go into spectator mode and choose an Enderman like so, it applies a filter to invert all the colours we see, meaning they see the end as an island of blue stone on a sea of white, with them and the Ender Dragon also having green eyes. Oh, and to them, cobblestone looks like endstone does to us.
Instead of using scaffolding, we could just use our new friend, the Happy Ghast. Because if I wanted to go build, let's say, I want to go work on this over here, this bridge. Well, no worries, because I can literally get off of the thing, stop moving, and build just fine. I mean, this is so much better than old scaffolding, it's not even fair. This villager might look like it's in danger, but don't worry. Since by just typing out this command with this data pack, we're able to summon villagers with no profession that we're able to use in stasis for decoration, which could mean building a system like this. But hey, the villager didn't have a profession anyway, so at the very least, this is a way to make a living. And besides, it's better than using one of our actually worthwhile villagers to build one of these setups. What do this llama and this boat have in common? Well, if a player rides on top, neither of them will sink, even if you're in water that's deeper than 2 blocks, which seems small, but the same can't be said for our horses or pigs, so it's definitely noticeable. And that'll make it all the easier to bring your friends along on the caravan for the next time that you travel. So this myth says that given enough time and enough endermen, they will grief your base. Well, let's see. So if you were to have a base kind of like this, where it's half made out of natural blocks and half made out of stone, the endermen would grief the other parts that we're seeing here with the dirt and the rooted dirt, but the truth is that they can't pick up stone by design. Myth partially busted. If you have a dirt house, it's not looking great for you. While playing in peaceful mode, you won't see a lot of undead mobs, but 2 are still possible, those being the zombie horse and the skeleton horse mobs. However, to get these in the mode, you'd have to use the summon command. And at that point, is it even worth saying that these exist in peaceful mode? Because without operator commands, they really don't.
In the past, it was possible to damage the Ender Dragon with snowballs, which makes sense for the blaze, but it's a lot weirder to see this happen against the dragon. And Mojang agreed, since as of snapshot 15W32A, the dragon no longer takes damage from snowballs. But don't worry, they're still worth keeping around for taking out the end crystals.
If I have a ghastling, like so, it looks like I'm holding along a little balloon. We've done this with Allays in the past, but I think this looks particularly fitting. I mean, maybe the open gills are a little disgusting. I wouldn't want to have any balloon like that, but from the back, I'm just a normal day at Disneyland. Did you know pigs could drop brown mushrooms? Sure enough, back in the Java Edition survival tests, there was a time where these mobs only dropped brown mushrooms on death. But obviously, this was changed to a pork chop when that item got added in. Though it makes me wonder, if you eat a mushroom stew made out of pig shrooms, is that still vegetarian? I don't know.
Mushrooms are a ripoff, or they were back in beta. See, back in the pre-release, if you right-clicked a mushroom with a stack of bowls, there was a bug that they'd all condense down into only one bowl of mushroom stew. And if this wasn't changed, I'm not sure many of us would try to find these in a mushroom fields biome. So, because these have a solid hitbox on the top, we could go and jump between the different happy ghasts and time it just perfectly to have a parkour course. You might not notice it now, but when creepers were first added to Minecraft, they were able to camouflage. And a lot of this was because the original creeper texture actually matched the alpha grass texture that we can see here. So when standing next to the standard foliage, these creepy mobs really did fade into the background. And that made it even tougher to try to pick one of these out during the early version. But as the textures got updated and the grass color maps changed, creepers stayed the same. And unfortunately for them, now they stick out like a sore thumb. This one says that Allays do not dance to the broken music disc like they do to other ones. Let's find out.
Oh, sure enough, not only are they dancing to it, but they seem to love it. They love it a lot more than I do, I'll tell you that much. Myth busted.
This fox is too small for its own good, and that becomes immediately apparent when you put it in water. Sure, it's cute, but it's so small that even when it's swimming, it'll start drowning. And you can notice this when a baby fox tries to hunt a fish. It'll likely die before it gets to the food.
Villagers in Minecraft are not a very aggressive bunch, which can make them very fragile to different attacks from mobs. However, using dispensers like so, we can actually give enchanted armor to villagers, and they'll use it. Which means that even though you don't see it, this villager's actually fully equipped with enchanted netherite armor using thorns. But really, where you're gonna get the best results from this feature is by mixing your villagers together with Frostwalker. And better yet, it's gonna mean that the next time the pillagers come through for a raid, they're not gonna know what hit them.
So this myth is that a Shulker is immune to fall damage. Well, let's find out. Now, if I were to go and summon a Shulker up here, it'll always teleport down. You can't summon it midair. So is it immune to fall damage? Sure, but it's never actually falling. Even with commands, it just doesn't work. It'll give you the command feedback, target is invulnerable to the given damage type. And if we were to do the same with a sheep, there you go. So, myth confirmed.
If you look closely at certain villagers' heads, you'll notice they might be wearing some pretty weird hats. Like the librarian villager, for instance, which, while it might look like a fez, actually is a book when you look at it from the right angle. And while it might look like the swamp villager has a bonnet on or something like that, it's actually just a lily pad just splayed over the top of their head, which honestly makes me jealous. This Minecraft mob has no AI, and the reason for that is because that's your job. You see, in the education edition for Minecraft, this robot called the Agent is a mob that's specifically designed to teach players how to code. And with that, you can teach this mob to do different things like harvest your crops, place blocks, and a whole number of other things, which is a lot cooler than just looking at Microsoft Visual Studio, so I'll take that trade-off. Even though the Allay made it into Minecraft during the Wild update, it was originally planned all the way back for the Nether update. Although back then, it would have been called the Wisp, and it would have had a much different look. Even when it was renamed to the Allay and it was planned to be added in, there could have been different colors that we saw for the mob, which I'll say I'm disappointed that we didn't see. But you can find a yellow Allay that shows up in the Minecraft Legends trailer, so I guess the idea is still there. Alright, pop quiz. Have you ever heard of the Minecraft mob, the Spark? If you haven't, then you probably haven't looked at the game's files, considering that only there's the Shulker's bullet called the Spark. But other than that, how would you even know this? It's not like it spawns with a name tag or anything, but there you go. Now you got something for your next Minecraft trivia night.
Don't feed your parrot a cookie, which is a lesson even Mojang had to learn, since when the parrot was first added to the game, you could use cookies to tame them. However, cookies are actually toxic to parrots in real life, so the code was changed to give them a fatal poison effect instead, reflecting the real world fact.
So what we've got here is a little plushies on the bed, and because, ooh, that one's not so plush, but the dried Ghast looks shockingly like a little squishmallow that you can put on your bed.
In Bedrock Edition, it's possible to keep parrots on your shoulder when you take flight with an elytra. Or rather, I should say, you're keeping them around where your shoulders should be. Since when you look at it from this angle, it really just looks like they're hovering in place, which is a bit peculiar, but they're at least more loyal than the ones in Java Edition, who bail on you when you start to get any kind of speed.
We've got the Ghast replacement prank. And you might have been hearing some weird sounds during all this, and the reason for that is that we went through and replaced your friend's happy Ghast with an unhappy Ghast. If you want to go and make an uneasy alliance and bring one of these through the Nether, then that's a real rude awakening when they have to go deal with an unhappy Ghast blowing them up. I mean, unless you're just insane with it like me. I don't know what to tell you there. Happy Ghast will designate a home area depending on where you first interact with it. So that includes harnessing, deharnessing, unleashing, or dismounting. So similar to a smokestack or a beacon, if we were to have a Happy Ghast and then give it a harness or something here, dismount it at the location that we want, then it'll always float back. So I go and dismount right over here. I've now got a big red balloon to go and look to see where my base is. Man, it does wander quite a bit though, but within that 32-ish block range, and that'll give you a rough area to look out for.
Normally, when you want AFK at a mob farm, you gotta use an auto killer. And while those are great, they don't get you any XP. Except, of course, if we throw man's best friend in the mix. Sure enough, by putting a dog right down here at the bottom of the farm, we're able to have it kill all of these skeletons for you to get loads and loads of EXP. One great use I've seen of this is putting an AFK skeleton EXP farm right next to your tree farm, which overall makes this a really solid design to use in your world. Just make sure no protection or thorn skeletons happen to get in the mix, because if that happens, you might have to feed the dog. It'll take a couple hits. There is no limit to the amount of bats that can hang from a single block, which sounds unimportant, but when you execute it like this, it becomes quickly noticeable, and it can make for a pretty serious prank to surprise your friends down in the caves. Though, since it's impossible to tie bats to a lead, I don't know how you'd get all of them together to do this without a spawn egg.
You can't shear a baby sheep, but with a command you can summon a baby that's been sheared, and it looks pretty cursed. Plus it really shows how long the sheep's head is under all that wool. all. And no amount of wall blocks is worth having to look at this sad sight.
This one states that Iron Golem will give a baby villager a poppy on rare occasions. Now, this has definitely been in the game, and the truth is that it still is, but you're not going to see it on Java anymore. So, as we can see here, the Golem does still offer out the poppy. It's just that due to a bug, it won't actually have the baby villager accepted anymore. So, myth busted. This myth says that if we take a blaze and give it water breathing potion, then it'll become immune to water damage. We got our blaze, it's got water breathing on it, and by the looks of it, it might be breathing in the water, but it won't be breathing for long. And we could even see this if I were to go and take some more splash potions of water breathing. Definitely has the effect, but with those regular splash water bottles that Observer's throwing down, it will still take damage, and increased damage at that. Myth busted.
Do you remember when Minecraft was gonna add a monkey? Or how about an alligator? Well, if you don't, it's probably because you don't live in China. See, with the release of the Chinese version of Minecraft, Mojang held a special mob vote just for that region. And as we know, the panda won in a landslide, and it now exists in the global release. The Rascal and the Tough Golem might not have won the mob vote, but they are still in Minecraft, because in Bedrock Edition, there was a special free skin pack that was added in that would let you choose between different clothings for the 12 different skin, including the Rascal, the Sniffer, and the Tough Golem. So it's a far cry from the mobs actually being in the game, but it's a lot better than some of the other mob vote losers got, so I guess you take what you get.
Skybase axis. So if I go and leash up my Ghast, and there's my perfect skybase. I mean, what's a better way to reach your skybase than with your skybased friend? Now I'm at my skybase. You're just gonna want to remember if you go up here to leash it to something else. There's nothing worse than getting up to your skybase and then having no way back down. But hey, pre-elytra, this is a pretty fun way to travel.
Why is this wolf's tail spinning? It's not a glitch, but instead this is because the wolf's tail is linked to its health. So low health equals a lower tail, but the opposite also applies. So if you use commands to artificially increase the wolf's health, it'll start spinning like this. And thankfully it doesn't spin fast enough for the wolf to up and fly away. Then we'd have a real problem on our hands.
Ever since Snapshot 24W33A for the 1.21.2 version of the game, it was made so that any non-zombie undead mob wouldn't go and summon reinforcements for regular zombies. So if I go over here and I take up my creeper, some shears like so, and some splash potions of invisibility, then the idea behind this is to get a creeper inside of this boat. There you go. And then if I go and grab my Ghast, because I can attach things with a lead to my Ghast like so, I now have a creeper delivery system, which then I can use my shears and snip off. I do this, there you go. The creeper explodes right on target.
With just one bed and a bell, we can gather all of our villagers like that. And it really is as simple as just placing down the bed in the middle of an area, and then you'll see them all flock towards the bed, giving you all of your villagers wrangled up, which you could then use to either convert them all into witches with a trident, or convert them all into zombies with this method here. Whatever the point is, I'll let you decide. But now at least you'll know how to gather up the rapscallions.
When they were first shown off, piglins would raise their arms like this to attack you when angry, making them look a lot more like zombie pigmen than the piglins we're used to. However, this seems to have been removed before any Nether update snapshots came out.
Llama storage. A chest boat can be leashed, and that only has 27 slots. But if we have 2 max strength llamas, then those both give us 15. There you go. Now we're at 30. And then attaching them both up to the boat like so. So now I've got the most storage possible with my happy Ghast. I mean, we can't put chests on these things yet, so this is basically the best way to do it. And as Curtsy brings up, we could also go and chain multiple to the same boat.
Cauldrons work very differently between Java and Bedrock. And while it's a shame for us, it's great for the Endermen, since you'll see that only in Java they can take a bath without getting hurt in the water. Horses are a lot of fun to ride around, but as soon as you take one to a body of water, you know you're out of luck. I mean, if you're ankle deep, you're fine, but that's the most you're gonna get. Unless, of course, you manage to luck out during a thunderstorm, because then you can get a skeleton horse. And folks, with one of these skeletal steeds and the right amount of potions, you can actually travel underwater riding a skeleton horse. It's a weird form of travel, and I definitely don't see it happening much, but really, how cool does it look to just go down in the depths of one of these things? If nothing else, just take a screenshot of yourself and put it on a metal album.
So if we want to do Ghast docking and storage, as you can see from this indicator, it's now currently on. Now it's off, and I can go and fly my Ghast out. But then when I want to dock it to make sure that it's all good and safe, I just float right back up here. It's a little bit of maneuvering. There we go. And then lock. And all it takes is just one trap door over it. It can't get out.
For any fans of The Shining, I'm sure you're well aware of the Here's Johnny Easter egg in Minecraft. That is, if you name a Vindicator Johnny, then it's going to go absolutely insane against all the other mobs around it. And while this is a fun little reference, we can actually use it for way more than that. You see, by putting this Vindicator's aggression into a mob farm, we can actually have it auto-kill the different mobs that we breed. agreed. This does make for a pretty brutal system, but the results are hard to argue with. And as long as you yourself manage to keep a respectable distance between Johnny, he's gonna go right to his work and leave you be.
Minecraft's pillagers used to look like this. They were designed like a pirate, wearing an orange torn vest and an eye patch. But this picture is the only existing evidence, since the mob designers decided that proper armor would look better instead.
Functional Happy Gas train station made by the Redstone Sprout. Look, they even got chairs for us to wait in. This is so polite. So by clicking this in, I've now got the stop. So the Happy Gas train is gonna stop at my junction. And then it rings the bell, it stops it. We can get on, join me, observer, and go and ride it to our next stop. That's a time gate. That rocks. And I saw a video of someone showing this off where it was a multitude of gas on the train. That was so cool.
How did we make these minecarts fly? Well, the reason's bees. Because if you summon in a minecart riding as a passenger on top of a bee, it'll actually still let the minecarts fly around and they'll still be functional. And then if we take after this user and make the bees invisible, we have quite the mini game to climb up to the top of the base. Just make sure you don't hit the sneak key, otherwise you'll be in a spot way worse than last place.
This one says that if you were to have the blindness potion, then there's no way to stop the creaking. Now, obviously, normally, if I had a creaking here, I would just look at it and stop it this way. But if I drink this Suspicious 2 to get blindness, does that still count against the creaking? By the looks of it, it will stop even if I have the blindness effect. Yep, sure enough.
This isn't Steve, but actually this is the unused human mob for Minecraft. Back in early developments of the game, there did exist a hostile mob that looked identical to Steve. But even though they were hostile, it's hard to say that they were intimidating, considering that spawning these in would just cause them to move around all janky. Fire's usually a good enough deterrent to keep mobs at bay, or at the very least it'll keep me out of your house. But in Bedrock, zombies will pathfind through literal fire to get to a villager, and that's some serious dedication. In the April Fool's one block at a time snapshot, it's possible to mount the Ender Dragon and ride it around as your own. Sure enough, if you get close enough where you can do this, you'll be able to hop on and steer it as you want, letting you use this for both a tunnel bore and some form of fast travel. And plus, it lets you move the Ender Dragon around in the overworld, which is more than it does by itself in regular versions. But the part that I don't get is that we only see 3 rows of hearts described here. And if you ask me, that seems pretty low for the biggest boss in Minecraft.
So normally with a creeper, we can place a block in between us to negate all the damage. This myth says that when you place a block between you and a charged creeper, it'll explode like a normal creeper. Well, let's see. So, light it off, place a block. Oh, I mean, just by the looks of that, yes. But I just closed that gate and I was completely safe. Let's try that again. Without the gate, sure enough.
By stacking up 20 or so villagers into a hole like this, we can make it so that when we fall inside of the hole as well, we can jump with our elytra and use all of the combined force of their pushes to launch ourselves sky high. And there you go. You've got an entity launcher that doesn't use any rockets, making this not only hilarious, but also quite effective. But take warning, if you want to build this, make sure that there's less than 24 villagers in the hole. Otherwise, you might run into the entity cramming limit, and then this design won't take you up to the skies, it'll take you up to heaven. Let's be honest, with the way that we're treating the villagers, we're probably going south of the pearly gates.
The myth that we have here is that shulkers will take more damage from a pickaxe than from a sword. Well, we can see this by the amount of hearts that they list over their head. So that was 2 there, but about 5 there for my sword. Obviously, they take more damage from the sword than they do the pickaxe.
You would never notice this in regular gameplay, but one end crystal is capable of healing multiple ender dragons at once. This becomes quickly noticeable when you summon in multiple dragons, as the crystal splits off different beams to heal the dragons.
So a common thing I've heard before is that husks are able to drop sand when you kill them. Well, we got a lot of husks here. Let's see if they drop any sand for us. The truth is that no matter how many of these husks I'm killing, no sand from that one. The only thing that you're gonna find in a husk's loot table is the same stuff that you would find from a zombies. There's no difference.
This villager was never seen in Minecraft, but if you go within the game's files, there sure enough is an unused texture for the angry villager mob, featuring red eyes and angry eyebrows. And even though villagers can still get mad in the game if you were to punch them, even with all those particles, it's still not nearly as intimidating as one of these.
Shulkers weren't supposed to be purple. In fact, the original idea was that these mobs could camouflage into any nearby block. So a shulker on purple would look purple, while one on endstone would look like, well, endstone. But Jeb decided this was too difficult to code, so it never made it into the game. To get the chicken jockey music disc, you can't kill the chicken first. If I were to go and slay the chicken and then kill the zombie, no chicken jockey music disc. But the same setup where I kill the zombie first, sure enough, that's the only way to get the chicken jockey music disc.
To make sure our villagers are safe when they're doing our bidding, we have to defend against raids. And the easiest way to do that is to take a pillager mob that might have spawned from a patrol, tuck it into a prison and give it a name tag, so that then, whenever you walk by with Bad Omen effect, the raid's never actually gonna start, because it thinks that Larry over here is the only raider that it should be sending. And then after a few days in-game, the raid will end, and your base will be completely fine, all without having to worry about things like evokers or ravagers ever too. And if it means I have to enslave one pillager so that I can keep enslaving my villagers, that's fine by me. During development, blazes originally had no eyes, and they just float around without any expression. But according to Jeb, this made it look more like a yellow rock than a mob, so the eyes were added in to give it more personality. The first ever mob vote for Minecraft wasn't between any of these mobs, but rather it was between the llama and the alpaca. Back in 2016, Jeb posted this unofficial Twitter poll to help fans decide whether or not it should be llamas or alpacas. And as we know, llamas won in a landslide, and I'm afraid whoever won in alpacas got a real spit in the face when they were added in.
We're in the ancient city for this one, and the reason is that if I were to take some night vision and go exploring with my happy Ghast, this gives me a great way to travel without triggering anything in the ancient city. Now granted, getting off and on is going to do things for the skulk sensors, but as far as just this, look at me. There's no actual sound. This is like an electric vehicle. This is great. I feel so safe in an ancient city. I've never felt this safe before. I mean, it's slow, and I can go step off here, loot up my stuff. That is a great haul.
By this point, everyone's familiar with the rarest mob in Minecraft, but this mob can also be very rare, considering that there's only a rare chance that an Arctic fox even spawns in a snowy taiga biome, and then add on to that another 5% chance of that fox being a baby variant, and it gets to the point where if you find one of these, buy a lottery ticket. Your luck's pretty good. Did you know creepers are aliens? Well, not all of them, but this one certainly is. Since, thanks to an experiment done by the University of Southampton, students were able to send personal belongings into space, and one of those students sent a creeper. So when you look up into space, just know that somewhere out there was a creeper, and thankfully it didn't explode on the way up. Otherwise, that wouldn't be as fun of a fact. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?